Hey, what is up everyone? I'm Omogonix here and welcome back to part 6 of my Godot tutorial series where I teach you guys how to make a basic horror game in Godot. So in this part I've got quite a bit planned today. So first off, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you guys how to make papers which you can pick up. So let's say for example you have letters in your game that you want the player to read in order to give them clues for something, or just extra lore or something like that, right? Then I'm going to be showing you guys how to do that today, and also how to interact with them and have the player pick them up and stuff so they can read them properly. And also another thing which I plan to do today as well is make a basic main menu. I won't get into making settings yet, that's something I'll do in a future part. But yeah, I will be getting to making a basic main menu in this part most likely, so do be, sure to most likely see that. And the last thing that I have planned for today is to show you guys how to actually make like a trigger which can trigger a scary event to happen. So let's say for example, right, you have your player walking down a corridor and then you want a trigger which then plays an animation which has like a character walking down or running down the other end of the hall to give the player a bit of a startle, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm going to be showing you guys how to do that today in this tutorial as well if we've got time. And yeah, so if you guys do enjoy, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more. And without further ado, let's finally get into part 6 of how to make a basic horror game in Godot. So first up, like I just said, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you guys how to actually make a bit of paper which you can pick up and read. So here's what we're going to do for that. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to make a new scene, and this will be a 3D scene. And I'm going to call this paper, this node here. And also something else which I recommend as well is you change the type of, and let me just switch into the 3D view as well. I just realized I'm in the script view. But yeah, because in case you didn't know, you can switch between 2D, 3D, and script view if you want to. And there's also an asset library section, except I don't really use this. However, you guys can make use of this if you want to. So yeah. But anyways, so with your paper 3D node, just change that type to a static body 3D. Alrighty, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go add a child node, and it is going to be a mesh instance 3D. And you want to set this mesh instance to a quad. Since this is just going to be a flat bit of paper, all we'll need is a flat surface. And quads are really good for that, since, they've got a low poly count, so yeah. So anyways, now what we're going to do is we are going to basically just rotate this on its, we're going to rotate it on its x-axis by -90 degrees, and there we go. And then I'm just going to scale it down so then it's more scaled into a bit of A4 paper, like that, there we go. And boom, so here we have our bit of paper. Now what you want to do is make sure you do save your scene, of course, as you are making it, so then if your PC ever crashes or anything like that, then at least you've got your progress saved. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add a collision shape 3D. So I'm just going to click on my paper, go add child node, and then search up collision shape 3D. And then with the shape, I'm going to make it a new box shape, and there we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make it a child node of the mesh instance 3D. And the reason as to why I'm going to do that is, and it's not going to be like this forever, I'm just going to do this so then I can correctly scale the paper like that, and there we go. Because I just wanted to get the proper scaling of the x-axis, so yeah. So now that I've got the proper scaling, what I'm going to do is I'm then going to make this collision shape 3D just a normal child node of the static body 3D again. And then we're going to shorten that down, something like that. And there we go. So now this is pretty much our paper set up and done. Now what we need to do is we need to do the scripting for it. And you might be thinking as well, but wait, what about the texture? And don't worry, we will be getting into that. So what we're going to be doing for this paper, right, is because this paper is just going to be it's just going to be in its own scene, essentially. We're not going to actually be able to edit the paper's material when we do add it into another scene, because the only node we'll be able to play around with is the parent paper node. We won't be able to play around with its child nodes unless we go into its singular individual scene, which we're in right now. So you might be thinking, well then how are we going to edit our papers? How are we going to have multiple paper materials then? Well, how we're going to do that is via scripting, and of course we're going to be doing that in the exact same script which the interaction will be involved with, so yeah. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go script empty, new script, and then just call the script what you want. I'm just going to call it paper, and then scripts will be the folder which we save it into, and then we're going to create it. Also, just want to say as well, sorry if I sound a bit weird in this video, if I ever sound a bit stuffy or my voice sounds a bit weird at certain points. I'm still sick at the moment, so yeah. I've been slowly getting better, but you know, it's been a bit of a bother. So what we're going to do is we're going to be adding in a material, blah. Well, we are going to be adding in a material, but it's going to be a variable for a material. So you want to write export @export var, and what export is it's basically like a public variable in Unity. So @export, see that as writing public, like if you're using Unity C#. So @export var, and then I'm going to call this paper material. Boom. And then we're going to then do the 2 dots, and then standard material 3D. So this will be a variable to grab our paper material, so you can just fill this in with whatever you want. And then the next variable we'll have here is toggle. So what this variable will be, it will be basically like a bool for true or false, and basically if toggle equals to false, then that means that the paper will be put down, but if the toggle equals to true, then that means that the player is being picked up. So every time the player presses the interact key, what will happen is toggle will equal to the opposite of toggle. So yeah, that's what we'll be doing. So toggle at first will equal to false. And now what we're going to do is we're actually going to then get to the actual interaction. So first up, func_ready. So this is going to be the first function in our script. So at the very start of the scene, what will happen is we'll go $, and then you want to get the name of your mesh instance 3D. So because the name of my mesh instance 3D, which is the child of the paper static body 3D, because it's just called mesh instance 3D, I'm just going to write that here. You just want to get the name of it. And then you want to write .material override. And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting the material of this paper to the paper material that we want to set it to. Because when we add this paper to another scene, the only node we'll get to play around with is the actual parent node. We won't get to actually change around the child node of the mesh instance 3D and basically, you know, change its material and stuff like that. So yeah. So that's why we're setting it in script. So now once we've done that, that's all we need to do for the func ready at the moment. What we're going to be doing is we're just going to be doing now a func interact. So this will be our interact function. And now what will happen is toggle equals to the opposite of toggle. So when the player interacts with the paper, toggle will equal to the opposite of toggle. And then this is the part of the script, this part here, where we need to make the paper in the UI actually show up. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, how are we going to do that when we haven't even made a UI thing for the paper yet? Well, that's what we're going to do now. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave the script off here for now. This is just it for now. It's not completely done yet. We still need to do more of it, right? But we now need to do a UI version of the script. Of the paper, So what we're going to do is we're going to actually go into the UI scene we made earlier, and we're actually going to make use of this same scene here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a child node, and it'll be a text direct. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be applying our paper material into this, our paper texture into this texture rect here. So what I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to add in this icon here, the Godot icon, since it's just a basic image which is already in the Godot project folder as soon as you start it up. So I'm just going to drag that into the texture section, and there we go. So this is actually going to be what my piece of paper will be in the game, just as an example. But yeah, so what you can do is you can scale this however you want to. You can also change the expand mode. Usually sometimes what I like to do, if I want to keep something proportional, is I set it to fit width proportional, but you guys can do what you want to. You can do also ignore size and all that sort of stuff as well. So what I'm going to be doing in particular is I'm just going to be stretching this out so then it looks like a bit of paper like that. So there we go. And I'm going to rename this texture rect to paper. And then once you're done with that, you can just simply disable it. And there we go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our paper, our normal paper scene. And basically with this func interact, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing get_node, and then in quotations, /root/, and then we're going to be getting the level's name. So we're going to be going get_tree dot current underscore scene dot name plus, and then quotes again, and then slash, and then UI, and then paper, or whatever the name of your paper is. And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be dot visible equals to toggle. So depending on what toggle equals to, that is what the visibility of the paper in the UI will equal to. So yeah, and then that's pretty much it for now in terms of the paper interaction. Actually, something else, of course, we could do is we could make it so then the player can't walk anymore or look around anymore as they're looking at the paper, so that's something else we could do as well. So let's actually take a look at the variables we have for the player and the camera. So for the camera, we have a movable variable, and I think we have the same thing for a player. Yep. Alright, so what we're going to do here is with the paper, underneath this line here, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting our player, be doing get_node, and then we can just copy this part of the script here, just like that. And then over here, we just want to get our player, so whatever your player's node is. So I'm just going to go back to my level node. What is, it's just player with a capital P, so we'll do that. And then boom, so once you've got your player, we're going to now go dot movable equals false. And then we'll copy this line again, paste it below here. And then we're going to be getting our player's camera script. So I'm just going to go to my player scene so I can see what the nodes are here. So we've got player and then head. So the head node is the one with my camera script. So we're going to go /head. And then with this, dot movable will equal to false as well. Actually, sorry, not false. I meant to write toggle. That's what I meant to write. So yeah, because it's dependent on what toggle equals to. That's what I meant to write there, not false. I meant toggle. So yeah. So when the player interacts with the paper, toggle will equal to the opposite of toggle. And then the visibility of the paper will change depending on what toggle equals to. And then the state of if the player can move or look around will be changed based on what toggle equals to as well. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. So that there is our paper script, and what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to add this into our level. So just save your scene if you need to, and then let's go to into our main level scene and let's add in this paper somewhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in the paper right here as an example. So I'm just going to go into my scenes folder, grab my paper, drag it out, boom, and there we go. So I'm just going to position it, and I might even scale it down a bit as well. There we go, I think that's a good size. And then what you want to do as well is make sure you fill in the empty paper material variable that we wrote. So you want to load in a material. For me, it's going to be the oh, wait a second, I haven't even made a material yet for the paper. So what we need to do first, before we do add in the paper material, is actually make a material for the paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my materials folder, go create new resource, standard material 3D, and I'm just going to call this paper. And boom, there we go. So now I'm just going to fill in the albedo color here to the icon. And there we go. So now we have our paper material. You guys can of course make a proper paper material if you want to. This is literally just a material with the Godot logo on it, but it's just an example for this tutorial, so yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in the paper material now with the paper material that I just made, and there we go. And now we should be ready to actually start this off and test it out. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm now going to test out the scene and see how it all goes. Alrighty, so here we are. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the paper. As you can see, when I look away from it, the interaction text actually shows up. And also, the material of the paper changed to the one we set in the script. So now if we press E, oh, apparently we did something wrong here. Oh, I see. Okay, so I did a little thing wrong here. So it turns out that in the actual level scene, the UI, it's capitalized, and here I did just lowercase, so that was my mistake there. There we go. Alright, so now that should work, hopefully. Now let's test it again. I was confused there, I'm like, huh? What did I do wrong? But yeah, now I know what I did wrong. Alrighty, so now let's actually test this out again. And boom! Oh, but for some reason I can still... Oh, wait a second. Wait a minute. Okay. Looks like I'm coming to a few realizations as I do this script. So instead of the player movable and the head movable the head movable variables equaling to what toggle equals to, what we need to do is we need to do so if toggle equals to true, for example, right, the player movable needs to equal to false, because the paper is visible and we don't want the player to move whilst the paper is visible. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that the player's movable variable equals to what the opposite of toggle equals to, and same thing with the player head variable, the camera movement, where you want to make sure that that equals to the opposite of what toggle equals to as well. So now when the player is looking at the paper, the player can no longer move, and that should work now. So if we go play again, then it should all work out. Alright, so let's look at the paper, pick it up, and boom, as you can see, everything works now. So now when we look at the paper and pick it up, we can no longer move around until we press E again. And yeah. So that there is how you do interactable paper in Godot, and you can also change the material of the paper via the script as well. Oh, and that actually reminds me as well, there's something else which I forgot to do as well. Okay, so something I just realized, right, is let's say for example you have multiple papers in your scene. So, and they all, and they all have different paper materials, right? So with how this script works currently, if the player picks up any paper, it doesn't matter what material it has, the same exact paper that that Godot that Godot logo that I was picking up before, that would just be the only paper that would show up whenever I pick up any bit of paper. And how do we stop that from happening? How do we make it so then, depending on what paper we pick up and depending on what material it is, then it changes to that in the UI? Well, here's what we're going to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new variable at export var, so it's going to be a public variable, and this will be paper UI texture. So this will be the texture for the paper in our UI. Now we're going to be calling this texture, 2D, I think is what we need to have it as. If I do need to change it to anything else, then I will, but I'm pretty sure that is what we need to do for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check what the texture variable on here is called. So it is just simply called texture. So what we're going to do is with our paper script, what we're going to do is we're going to copy this entire line of code here, put it above this, just underneath the toggle line, paste it, and then instead of visible, we're going to write texture, and then it will equal to paper underscore UI underscore texture, and there we go. So now, whenever the player picks up any bit of paper, it will now change the UI paper's texture to the one you are picking up. So yeah. And now let's go apply everything in the normal level. So let's go select our paper again, and then we'll fill in the texture. So I'm going to put this with the icon, of course, since this is my regular paper texture. And then what I'm going to do to test this out is I'm actually going to then paste this bit of paper somewhere else. So what I'll do is, I'll place a table out here somewhere. So I'm just going to copy this table. Put it over here. Paste. And then here we've got a table. Soon I will be decorating this scene more, by the way. Just right now it looks a bit more basic. And there we go. So now we have a table out here. And then I'm going to duplicate this bit of paper out here. Also, something else which I want to do as well is I do want to sort out my hierarchy a bit, since I do feel like things are getting a bit messy. And it is good to make sure that your hierarchy is all good and neat, of course, so then you're not, just looking around for stuff and getting confused. Because as your game gets larger, your hierarchy will get larger, and it's a good idea to try sort things out as best as possible, so then you're not as confused. So there is our paper, and boom. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change the paper material and the paper UI texture to something else. So I'll just set this paper material to something random. I guess I'll just set it to... what should I set it to? I'll just set it to the wall. Just a regular wall. And then with the paper UI texture, I'm going to set this to the wall texture, just a white wall texture, just as an example. And yeah, so now let's actually test this out once again. Let's go play. Alrighty, so now here we are in the scene once again. We can pick up the flashlight. We can pick up the bit of paper, as you can see. And something else which I need to do as well is I need to add in a sound for picking up the paper, which I will do in a bit. Now let's pick up the key, and let's leave. So as you can see, this basic horror game of ours is sort of coming along. So now here we have the other bit of paper, and as you can see, the material of it is the wall material, and now if we interact with it, that's, I think I know why that's happening. It's because of the scaling of the paper. Okay, so that's a bit of a bug there. Now, this is where, I guess, the scaling of the paper is important, the scale mode you set it to, so we'll get to that in a bit. So, let's go back to our UI, and into our 2D scene. We're going to make the paper visible again. So, something which we need to do with the expand mode is we need to actually change it. So, depending on what the texture we set it to, then it doesn't rescale itself like it did before. Because with the wall texture, when we set the texture to that, so if we set that to that again, as you can see, it scales off to the side here, and the reason as to why is because our expand mode is set to keep size, but if we set it to ignore size, then boom, it will just scale it to how the normal paper is scaled. So now let's set it back to the normal icon, and yeah. So now let's save, and now that paper should all be good. So with your expand mode, I said earlier to not worry about this, but do set it to ignore size or something like that. So then with your paper, you know, then it's all like just gonna equal to the same basically, and it won't rescale itself if any of your papers are different dimensions or whatever. But one way to avoid that is just by setting all your papers to the same exact dimensions, you know what I mean? So then the scaling of it doesn't change and it just stays the same. So that is another option, of course, but yeah. And anyways, now that this is all good and everything's all good here, now what we're going to do is we're now actually going to add in a paper pickup sound. Alright, so I've just added in the paper pickup sound, and it is a WAV file, but I do usually recommend MP3s when it comes to using sounds in Godot, but WAVs do work as well. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going to our paper, and we're going to be adding a child node. And this will just be a normal audio stream player. It doesn't need to be a 3D one. And we're going to set the stream to the paper pickup sound. And boom. So now that that is set, we're just going to save the scene. Then we're going to go into the script. And then what we're going to do here is with the interact, we're going to write $, and then you want to get the name of your pickup sounds. With me, it's just audio stream player, so I'm just going to write audio stream player, and then .play, and boom, that is it. So now let's go test it our paper again. Oh, wait a second, there's something I forgot to do. Something I forgot to do was make sure that the paper is no longer visible, so do make sure of that your paper is no longer visible in the UI when you do start your game. And now let's start again. And here we go. Alrighty. I'm going to pick up the flashlight, pick up the key, and now let's pick up the paper. And as you can see, when we pick up and put down the paper, the sound plays. Now let's go out here. And now as you can see, when we pick up this bit of paper, it stays the exact same size, and the size doesn't change anymore because we changed the stretch mode from keep size to ignore size. And yeah, so that there is how you make interactable papers in Godot. So hopefully that helped you guys out. Alright, so next up I'm going to be showing you guys how to actually make a main menu. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new scene, and this will be a 2D scene. There we go. I mean, not a 2D scene, sorry, a user interface scene I meant to say. So make sure you do select the user interface option. And then with this, I'm going to rename the control to main menu. So main_menu, and there we go. So now what I'm going to do is, for my background, I'm going to add a simple color rect. So I'm just going to type color rect. And I'm just going to change the color of it to black. You guys can do what you want for your background, of course. I'm going to rename the color rect to background as well, in fact. And then I'm going to stretch it out so then it scales the whole UI here. And there we go. Now what we need to do is we need to add in our game's logo. So I haven't actually made a logo for the game yet, but let's say, for example, you have made a logo for your game. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a child node to our main menu. Search up text direct, and then this will be where our logo is. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to quickly make a logo. I'm going to save the scene as well. Make sure you save your scenes as you do make them. And yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make a logo, and then I'll be back. So yeah. Okay, so I was originally not going to record this. I was originally just going to make my logo off recording and then, you know, come back and be like, alright guys, so here I have my logo. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you guys the process of, you know, me making a logo. So yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set my image size first of all. And by the way, the program I'm using here is paint.net 4.3.4. I don't know how new of a version this is. I haven't updated my version of paint.net in a while, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I'm just going to resize the image here though. I'm going to size it up to 800 by 800. Usually with a lot of my logos, I usually do something like 900 by 900, but you know, 800 by 800 is fine as well. There we go. And yeah, so we are going to keep the background for now, but I am going to add a new layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change my background color actually to black, so then I can see my logo better as I'm doing it. Going to go to my new layer. And I'm just going to add in some text. Going to change the font. Let's see what we've got here. We'll use Lilla the 1 for this. Change the font scale to something like 96 maybe. And I'm just going to call this basic. Oh, wait, my text is black. There we go, now we can see it. I'm going to call this basic horror game. Oh, game. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to see how it looks centered. Yeah, that looks alright. Scale up the text a bit maybe. There we go. Maybe even a bit more. Yeah, we can do that. Actually, no, we'll keep it about a 108 just in case. Just in case there's anything else we want to do on the outside of it. And there we go. So that there is the text. I'm going to now... Oh, wait. Set it back to white. I'm going to go to the paint bucket tool, and now I'm going to actually change the text color of horror to red. There we go. Then I'm going to do a line. By the way, you guys can do whatever you want for your logo. You don't have to copy me at all, of course. I'm just showing you guys an example of how I'm doing my logo for this game. So yeah, every time I make a logo for one of my games, depending on what the game is, it is going to end up different, of course, but this is just an example of how I might make a logo for a game like this, what I'm making, so yeah. So at the moment I'm just doing some cool little random lines, I guess. There we go. So that there is a majority of the logo. What I might do for the last bit of it is I might add a bit of glow to it. How does this look? Yeah. Looks alright. Now about the brightness. The contrast. Alrighty, so this here is going to be my logo. And what I might also do as well is I'll like duplicate this current layer that I've got here. And then I'll actually change like the hue or something of it. You guys will see what I'm doing here. Select this. Move it underneath. What I might even do as well is turn down the lightness of it. Oh. There we go. Just adding an extra layer underneath it just to make the logo pop out a bit more. And then what I might do is I might then add a bit of blur, like a bit of motion blur perhaps. There we go. And boom. Alrighty, so I'm actually going to consider that logo done there. I really do like that. So yeah, this here is going to be my logo for the basic horror game tutorial. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save my logo into the game folder. Oh, but first off, before I do that, I am going to disable the background. The only reason I had the background there was so that I could see the logo better, but now that the logo is done, I am going to disable the background and then it's just transparent. And now I'm going to save it. So I'm going to save it as a PNG, and then I'm just going to call this game logo, and boom. So now I'm saving my game logo. Alrighty, so now when I go back into my Godot project, I can now set the texture of the text direct to my logo that I just made. And there we go. So now here we have my game's logo. Alright, so now that I've got my logo added in, I'm going to rename the text direct here just to game logo. And I'm also going to change the expand mode to fit width proportional, so then I can scale my logo how I want to, but then depending on what the width is, at least then it will stay properly scaled at a certain point. So if I scale down my logo, for example, right, I can scale down the width of it as well, only up until a certain point when it reaches the logo's normal aspect ratio. So yeah, basically it just keeps your logo scaled normally how you would want it. So yeah, I'm just going to scale down my logo a bit, like that, and there we go. Center it in the middle of the screen just like that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add in some buttons. So go add a child node to your main menu control, and we're going to type in button, and there we go. So now we have a button. I'm going to scale this out, move it, and then I'm going to rename it. So, well, I'm not going to rename it yet, I'm going to add the text in, So the text here will just simply say play. There we go. I'm going to change the font size of it now to about 40. So this here will be our play text for our main menu. And I'm going to rename this, well, I won't rename the button yet, actually, I'll wait till I get all the other buttons done first, and then I'll start renaming them. But, yeah. So I'm going to duplicate that button, and then I'm going to move it below this play button, and this will say settings. So this will be for our settings. Now, I won't be doing settings yet in this tutorial, but I will be getting to that at some point later on, of course. And then next up, we'll have the credit screen, because that is important, of course, if you are using other assets from other people, or you do need to credit other people, or you want to credit yourself for certain things. So, yeah, just write credits, and we'll be doing a credits menu in a future part as well. And then last but not least is the quit button, so then we can actually quit the game. And there we go. So now I'm going to write quit, and boom. So it does look a bit awkward right now, the menu does, because of how close to the bottom of the UI the buttons are, so I'm just going to scale things a bit differently here. So I'm going to scale down the logo a bit more, move it up. And then with these buttons, I'm going to select them all, and then I'm going to move them up as well. And there we go, that looks a bit better now. So now we have a bunch of our basic main menu done. But another thing you might want to do as well is add in your developer logo. So what we can do for that is we can add a new text direct to the scene. Oh, text direct. And then I'm just going to use the Godot logo as an example. But yeah, so I'm just going to be adding in this as like a developer logo. We'll just go fit width proportional. And yeah. So if you want to have like a developer logo in your game, you can do that as well, of course. I'll just call this dev logo. And yeah. Also, I do want to make sure that your buttons are above the textures and stuff like that, and the texts in your scene. So by above, I mean below, really, because when they're like at the bottom of the hierarchy, that means they're above, I'm pretty sure, in Godot's context. Alright, so what we're going to do now is I'm actually going to add in a bit of text. So I'm going to go add child node and then rich text label, since that is what the text is called in Godot. And for this, I'm just going to write made by Omogonix, because, you know, you want to maybe have some developer text, so then if players want to know who the game is made by before clicking on the credits, you know, they can just see on the main menu who the overall creator is, or who the game studio is, or whatever, right? So with me, I'm just going to have made by Omogonix in the corner over here. I'm going to duplicate the text as well, and in the top right here, I'm just going to have like a version number, so I'm just going to have like version 1.0. And there we go. So that there is pretty much just a basic main menu. Now we will be adding interaction to this main menu, of course. I won't be doing interaction with the settings or credits buttons yet, since we won't be making them menus yet. But I will be doing interaction for the play and quit button today, so yeah. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my main menu's parent node, and I'm going to create a new script. I'm just going to call it main menu. I'm going to save it in the scripts folder. There we go, and we're going to go create. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a new function, and this will be called play. So what will happen is when we press our play button, the scene will change. So we'll go get underscore tree dot change underscore scene to file. And what we're going to do is we're going to get the path to our level scene. So I'm just going to select this, since this is the path to our level scene in our project folder. And yeah, so when we press play, our main scene will load, and then we'll have another function called quit. And what will happen here is we'll do get underscore tree dot quit. So then we can quit the game, and boom. So that is it for now. That is pretty much our script for now. We will be doing more changes later on, of course, when we do the settings and credits menu, but yeah. So what we're going to do is you want to select your play button, and then in the inspector you want to go to the node section, to the node tab, and then where it says pressed here, you want to right click this, go connect. And then you want to make sure that wherever your script is in your main menu, if it's on the parent node, then make sure you have your parent node selected. And with the receiver method, you want to type in the method that we just typed in before in our script, which is just simply play. And then we're going to go connect. And then boom, as you can see, our button is now connected to the play function. So when we press the play button now, then our scene will load. And then what we're going to do is we're going to then select our quit button. And we're going to do the exact same thing, so make sure you have your node tab selected, go pressed, and then with the receiver method I'm going to write quit, and then connect, and then boom, so now both of them buttons are connected. Alrighty, so now that they're both connected, what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to set my main menu to be the main scene of our game, so the level scene is currently my main scene, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my main menu scene. There it is. I'm going to right click it, and then I'm going to set this to my main scene, and there we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to test this out. So let's go play. And now we're going to select the play button, and boom, as you can see, my scene has now loaded in. And that there, guys, is how you actually do a play button for your game. So now I'm actually going to show you guys the quit button in action, so let's go test that out. And then quit, and boom. So as you can see, when we press the quit button, the game actually quits. Alright guys, so I was originally going to do more for this tutorial. I think earlier on I did mention how I was going to be doing, like showing you guys how to do a scare event trigger. So if you're like walking down a corridor and you want a monster to appear or run past, right, I was going to show you guys how to do that. But I will leave that for the next part since I have run out of time for today. But hopefully you did all think this was a good tutorial. Be sure to let me know if you did like it in the comments below. Also be sure to like it if you did enjoy it, or dislike it if you didn't. That's totally fine with me. And yeah, also be sure to check out my games at omogonixlachlan.itch.io, where you can check out a whole bunch of free games. I've also got 2 paid games as well, one for $1, one for $8.99. And yeah, so anyways guys, I'll see you all next time. Thank you all for watching once again, and bye bye.